So in episode 20, we did one that was advice from a general contractor to empower subcontractors. And so you being a subcontractor, we wanted to bring you in and kind of give the counterpoint to that. So the advice for a general contractor from a subcontractor's point of view, because a lot of those general contractors are really good at beating down on the subs. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the CM Mentors podcast. My name is Matt Graves, and my co-host each week is Kyle Grandell. What's going on, Kyle?
Hey, Matt, I'm just hanging out in lovely Des Moines, Iowa still. How about you?
I'm in hot Houston, Texas. It is hot. I don't even want to go outside.
What is it right now?
It is, I don't even know, man. It's too hot to go outside. So I'm trying to figure that out. I don't know, man. We're down here. It's hot. It's humid. The heat index is 20 degrees more than the temperature says. So I don't even know. But
for any of the listeners wondering, Matt's considering a new career in meteorology, as you can tell. So stay tuned.
You only have to be like 50% right to do that. So yeah,
I'll be better than the average.
20% right until the day of. Don't you wish you could do that? This week, job, be within 20%. Go ahead.
No. I appreciate it because it'd be a lot better at that probably than I am in my day job. But no, anyway, this week we have. They are. Everyone starts bitching and complaining, and so it's fun. No, this week we have David Wolke. He's the vice president at Hill Electric, and Angela Gardner kind of set us up with him. We got to meet Angela. I have recently. I was on their Women Talk Construction podcast, and her and Christy do some awesome stuff. And so she spoke highly of David, and I was like, man, we got to get him on. So, welcome, David.
Thank you. Yep, excited to be here. Angela is slowly training me to do the podcast and public speaking, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, I'm glad to have you on here, David, because now we can finally outnumber Matt, like we were talking about before we got started.
Electricians, so, that's right.
It's about time.
Yeah, on that I was listening to your Empowering Subcontractors podcast, and it's funny you mentioned electricians always the last to finish. Anytime anyone ever asks me, like, when are you going to be done, it's easy. It's like 2 weeks after everyone else. It's like 90% of the time, it's exactly what happened.
Just put that in the schedule every time, right?
Yeah. Can't you go faster? Yeah, I'll put the conduit there first, and then you put the building. That'll work.
I love it, man. Hey, so you just want to give us a little bit of bio of yourself?
Sure. Electrical engineer by education, worked for a textile manufacturing company for 7 years out of college. Was over 3 different plants as a plant engineer, and then did a little bit of project management role there. And then past 13 years, I've been here at Hill Electric. Went from project manager to operations manager, and now vice president. As you said in that same podcast, if you show up to work every day and don't do anything stupid to get fired, pretty soon you look around and you're at the top of the totem pole, which is I've been fortunate in that aspect. But so my responsibilities at Hill Electric are everything to do with labor. So hiring, where people go every day, progression of labor force, education, technical and safety of labor force. And then I have some job sites just because of location. And I like to be close to home on the way home, or close to my house on the way home. They're near my house. So guess what? I'm your project manager. Congratulations. So some that I do project management role and try to fill in there. So
that's awesome, man. So we wanted to bring you on. So in episode 20, we did one that was advice from a general contractor to empower subcontractors. And so you being a subcontractor, we wanted to bring you in and kind of give the counterpoint to that. So the advice for a general contractor from a subcontractor's point of view, because a lot of those general contractors are really good at beating down on the subs. And so kind of wanted to, I came from the subcontractor world. I know Kyle had time there as well. And, my heart is kind of with those guys. I'm on the owner's rep side now, obviously, but man, they're at the bottom of the hill and shit rolls down to them all day, every day from every direction. So just wanted to bring you in and kind of just give a little bit of advice to the GCs, especially kind of the new coming GCs that are coming into the industry.
Seems like there's a lot of them.
Every day there's another one, it feels like. And they're learning from sometimes not the best mentors that they have. And so they're learning how to do stuff sometimes the wrong way, I might say. But anyway, I guess you want to start it off. Do you have any general advice from a subcontractor?
General advice. So I did think it was interesting that, I came up with that topic and was listening to the podcast, making some notes for today, and realized that you guys actually talked more about what general contractors can do well for subs than you did what subs can do well for generals, which was a bit surprising for me because when I first saw the topic, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Another general talking about how many meetings we need to go to and how much paperwork we need to go to, do, and 5 hours of certifications we need to have and all this stuff. But it wasn't. It was very pleasant for me. What John spoke about through that, what a general can do. And the funny thing is, he brought up, I guess, his favorite job, or the job that he said went his best experience, and everything he said matched up to my best experience with a general. And it was very good. So, I guess we could start there. He mentioned a couple of things. You guys focus a little bit on those mini meetings. So the job situation that I was at was, we had a tornado hit one of our facilities that we have been in for 20 years. And is it all right to say facility names? What's the rules here? Does it matter?
Whatever you feel.
Doesn't matter. So it was Borg Warner up in Seneca. They got flattened by a tornado, and they provide Ford Motor Company with transfer cases for F-150s. They're the only facility to do it. So when they're down, Ford's down. And the Ford came in and brought in their general contractor in, and it's the best management. It's such simple stuff, but it went so well. For example, we would start every day with a walkthrough. Every contractor had a representative there. It took about an hour. There's to go through that full site and talk about everything that's going down in an hour, and there was no fluff, there was no working out details. It was, hey, here's where they are, here's where they are. Hey, we've got to get in here to do this. Okay, you meet me at this time afterward. We'll talk about it. Let's move on. Next thing. Hey, we need this roof on. What can we do? I need the lifts. I need this. I need this. Can anyone provide them with a lift? Yeah, I got an extra lift. Okay, I got this. I got this. Hey, I need them out of the way. Hey, we can't get out of the way because we've got to do this. Well, what do you need to make it in 2 weeks? Oh, if you could do this, we could make it in 2 weeks. Can anyone help me do that? Yeah. Okay. And then we moved on. And it was fantastic. And we were moving at light speed. Now, granted, it was a T&M job, so that might make it a little different. But I say that, but you've got a very, very rigid structure from the insurance company that is watching every single penny. Yeah. So you're trying to go at light speed and watch costs, but it went very well. And then you had your mini meetings afterward where you'd work out the details for the specifics. And then the next walkthrough, you'd give everyone the general idea of who's where, what they're doing. And it just made it streamlined. This
was every day, every morning when you started the day?
Every morning, set for it was 24 hours, 7 days a week up until they got back running. And every morning, and like I said, it took about an hour. Strangely, it only took an hour to cover everything. You weren't bogged down in. I agree that there needs to be unified communication where people know what's going on, but that's what that was. That was, hey, let's touch this, and who's going to be in this space at this time, and a brief of what you're doing, and then everyone could speak up and say, well, actually, I need to be in there to do this, instead of sitting in a meeting room talking about it. The other extreme is we've had job sites slightly over the border from us in Georgia where I don't know a good way to explain how this is, but if you've had manufacturing experience, you'll get it. But it seemed like they were running the construction site like a manufacturing facility. And even though you're still going after production and different things, it's a completely different world. So we would have a meeting in the morning, and then we'd have a meeting in the afternoon, and the next day we'd have a meeting. So we'd have a meeting with like the high level, and then we'd cover the same thing with a different group from that company in the afternoon and cover the exact same topics. And then the next day we'd cover it with the subs, it's like same information every day, and very little changes. We actually had to manage like 6 people. We had to have 2 superintendents on site, one to go to the meetings and one to manage the people.
I've actually seen that.
Very extreme.
I've seen that a lot, David. I'm glad you bring that one up. It's something that it's not a good use of time and efficiency. And I've had to push back on my owners sometimes and say, guys, you don't need the contractors in both of these meetings. I can be there for one of them and I can give the information so that these guys can get out there and get going on the work. That's how we're going to get the stuff done.
Yeah, absolutely. The other aspect of the plant versus the construction is your typical of a plant is when someone brings up a concern, you have to address it with a solution. But sometimes in the construction world, they bring up a concern and it's like, no, it's not feasible or it's not worth it. And, and move on. But on the plant, it stays on that list for months and months and months and you cover it every month until you have a solution that's acceptable. And it's just not the world we live in construction.
Well, and really quick, David, the first thing you talked about was that walkthrough meeting, that hour-long meeting, walking through the job site. And I thought that's a really cool idea. I like that because to me, it's almost combining a couple of different elements of some lean construction methods, which is, your daily huddle, your morning huddle with all your crews, but then also the Gemba walks, which is walking out to the area of work on the site, seeing the activity taking place. So it's almost like combining the two to make a really active and really collaborative style meeting. That, I mean, to me, that's just got to be efficient as hell.
Absolutely. Yep. Actually seeing where the work currently is. I mean, it just makes all the difference in the world versus trying to explain it to someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely got to be a happy medium on the documentation side and meeting side of it where you can communicate that information but not get bogged down in, your 3D models and your stuff that is very valuable. Does it fit that application? Because usually the 3D model is great if you have all the information ahead of time, but if you're putting it in as you go, it's lagging at times, So it once again, it depends on the application and the construction site and what you're doing.
The construction industry, one thing that drives me crazy, and I get it, especially on the owner's rep side, I especially get it, but is the amount of paperwork and documentation that does have to happen. And it's like, sometimes we just feel like, you're just all day, every day, all you're doing is prepping for the lawsuit and hope it never comes, right? You almost have to look at it in that lens. As a subcontractor in a GC, in your eyes, what's the happy median there? Because obviously there's a time when, you got to document everything. You want to send an email to document every little thing, or you got to write an RFI to document every little thing. But obviously that becomes overburden. And then there's a time too where it's just like handshakes in the field and you don't document anything. And then it's like, who told you to do that? Like, David? So what it kind of in your eyes, like, how do you train your folks on what's the proper level of documentation?
So we're fortunate as a 85 person or 85 field staff employee company that it's a little easier with the smaller job sites that we have. Large job site for us is 20 people. That it's a little easy to be in constant contact with my superintendents. And generally we get a phone call when that kind of activity is going on. As far as a happy medium in the CYA world, I mean, that's a tough one. It really is. Even on that job site that I spoke so highly of, we had an incident where we got a outdoor all-terrain lift stuck in the mud. And got chewed up and down about we didn't put on our JSA that we were going to get it stuck. So we didn't plan on it. And I was like, that's kind of like, did you plan on getting in an accident in your car? Like, I agree you got to cover the possibility, but at some point there's got to be like, okay, stuff happens. Like, we got to move on. That was interesting. But yeah, I don't have a good answer for that one, to be honest, Matt. There's got to be some happy medium and it just some common sense of when you're over the top,
I have a cynical opinion of JSAs and kind of safety in general. And I understand the importance of them, but again, it's like some of it, you're just writing the paper. It doesn't mean anything unless you're really doing an intentional conversation about it, right? And then it's like, well, you didn't write down it was going to be muddy. You're going to get stuck. You didn't have a plan B. You're like, no shit.
Yeah. I mean, at Borg Warner, the JSAs actually were pretty valuable. They had us do them in a different way, and every individual person had to carry it around. And we were able to hire a outside safety contractor that was phenomenal And he would go around. All he did all day was go around 5 minutes at a time and spend with each group and watch what they're doing, check their JSAs, and force them to really fill it out the way you're supposed to. And then he could give input because he knows the rules really well. The little details, like when you extend the basket out on a scissor lift, you have to derate the lift, kind of things, you know, and that he addresses that we don't deal with every day because we're not pushing the limits of those things. That worked really, really well. We don't have that luxury on a 4-person job site of doing that, though. And typically, like I said, our job sites are between 4 and 8 people.
Yeah.
That's the world we live in. We touch as much as we can. We train as much as we can. And luckily, and we can touch on this more if you want, but the way that we've traditionally compensated people, we're very heavily in the benefits world of compensations, more so than the hourly rate. It has truly given us a field staff that is mature, if that makes sense, or you know, down to earth about what they want. They value that stability and the flexibility that they have over trying to make as much money as possible and find a really big truck. So they're more stable, and it's really given us some very good leadership in the company.
That's cool. And they're not chasing a dollar raise here or there and bouncing around too. You get some tenure, I suppose.
We do have a lot of field staff that have left us for that dollar.
Yeah.
And then within a year or two have come back and then stuck with us, 15 years. Yeah.
I assume the culture where they went wasn't worth the dollar.
Either that or they don't like traveling. There's something worth being home every day.
That is true.
Sorry.
Well, and
both of you.
And Matt, to hit on the safety part really quick before we leave that topic, just to share a little story from this week related to JSAs that I had on my job site, working nights here, watching a small crew. I mean, it's only been probably four millwrights working on night shift right now. And the other day, I started to notice some behaviors out of the foreman that it just led me to believe that he's not really focused on safety. I mean, obviously everybody's focused on the job, but safety needs to be first. Otherwise, that's how people do get hurt if they're not doing the job safely, of course. So I noticed some things, some trends, and then I went and looked at his JSA for his crew, and all of his guys had signed off on the JSA, and there were no tasks written on it for what they were actually doing. So I saw that and I said, hold on here. We got to stop. So I made him come and talk with me, and I said, I got some real concerns here. Clearly, you guys aren't even having the conversations and talking about stuff and understanding the purpose behind doing the paperwork. I mean, everybody hates paperwork, obviously, but the point of the paperwork is to show that you've had the conversation and that everybody understands what's the work that's taking place. And so the fact that the guys were just signing off without even having anything written down, I was just like, oh man, this is not a good scenario.
That's my cynical opinion, basically in a nutshell, is the guys typically don't know. They're just signing it, right? They're having a smoke break while the foreman fills out the form. They come up, sign it. Where's my tools? Let me get to work. It's like, I don't have time to deal with that. And so everybody's just, I'm speaking in generalities, but everyone just kind of pencil whips it. And I see that time and time again. The best safety programs I've seen is where it's less about the paperwork and more about the actual interaction. And right, we had the company I worked for, they had an app, and it was all the JSAs. It was almost a checklist on a phone app, but they would record their basically toolbox talk, essentially, right? And they would record it all, and they made it fun and that sort of stuff. But it was more about the actual interaction with the guys sitting around talking, right, and having that interaction about what are you doing today, what are the hazards, and it wasn't just like, I'm going to fill out this form, Kyle sign it, David sign it, let's get to work, and you don't even know what the hell you just signed. So. Anyway, we have a long ways to come on safety, I think, in the industry as a whole.
Yeah, we have a monthly safety meeting at 6 a.m. at the shop, and of course, everyone loves hearing me talk at 6 a.m. about safety. But I do ask them what was the safety topic for the week, or I'll pick on someone. If they can stand up and tell me, they get $50. And try to get them. Look, hey guys, I know you're not going to read this 5-page thing, toolbox talk. I need just one thing. I need you to remember one thing from it every time you read it. It's an uphill battle for sure, but luckily we have a very strong safety record through the quality of employees that we have here and the companies that we choose to work for, and that goes a long ways.
Oh, it definitely does.
You did ask me what's I guess advice that I have for general contractors, especially all these it seems like you have a lot of up and coming general contractors, and it's funny. I was in a personal development group that met once a month with one of them, super nice guy, and we're hoping to get this big project down in Charleston. Okay, yep. As soon as we get it, we'll hire a superintendent to go manage it. Wow, you don't have anyone to manage it? Yeah, we'll probably have to hire 6 guys. How many you got in your company? 10. Like, whoa. And so my advice is, find your wheelhouse, stay in your niche, and stick with that. And also, don't chase that dollar. John talked about finding the way to become your preferred contractor, and there's so many generals out there that we've dealt with here recently that will do anything, anywhere, to make a buck, and it is not a positive experience. It really isn't.
That was my opinion, I guess, coming out of COVID or during COVID, really kind of industry opinion. I saw architects do it. I saw contractors do it. I saw a bunch of people do it where, like, COVID was scary, right? Everybody was just taking whatever work they could get because they didn't know what was going to happen. So they were taking stuff outside of their niche, outside of their comfort zone, outside of whatever during, the first 2 quarters or 3 quarters of 2020. Well, then over the next year, they had to go execute this work that they had no clue how to do, right? They may be doing hospitals all the time, but they went and got this industrial plant. Like, it's piping and stuff. I can handle it. Well, it's a completely different thing, right? And I think we're finally starting to get over that hump where all those projects are getting complete. But I felt like there was a whole bunch of people that did that, and it was just pure out of like self-preservation of COVID, not knowing what was going to happen with the economy and everything else. Yeah. So, anyway.
I mean, we struggle with it too. We've had a rash of like jobs where we're going into existing conference rooms and saw cutting the floor to put in a receptacle in the middle data for a conference table, and we'll self-perform the concrete. And yet it's stupid simple as far as concrete goes.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like telling me to build a TV. I can YouTube it, maybe figure it out. And so we save $1,000, and it took electricians away for 2 days from doing electrical work.
Do you self-perform your underground stuff?
As far as which aspect?
Any of it. I mean, really installing underground conduit in general.
Yes, we'll self-perform that. That's in our wheelhouse. Sometimes we'll sub out or contract out someone to do the digging, excavating for us. There again, staying in our wheelhouse, but
exactly.
We're doing some now for a Bitcoin mining operation that's got some heavy undergrounds. It's short runs, but yeah, we'll excavate our own and put the PVC on the ground. That's definitely in our wheelhouse. As long as we have the correct specs on the transformer pad locations and heights, yes, that's something we can do.
I got you. I saw the company I worked for. They were underground plumbing, for instance, where if you're building, most of these guys, they may be on a 3-year project and they're installing plumbing overhead, right? And so every 3 or 4 years, they start a new project and they have to go back down to the ground. It's a completely different ball game, and just completely different means, methods, procedures, everything else. We'd always hire out or excavator or somebody, basically a digger, right, to dig the ditches for us. But we were, I don't know if they ever did after I left, they were toying around with the idea of having like a dedicated underground crew if they could schedule the projects right. So all they just do, they get really good at doing the underground work and bounce around, and then bring in the overhead guys essentially to finish out the project. And so it's just, anyway.
Yeah, it's a little bit different skill set. It's almost a little easier in some aspects because you're not exposed to working at heights and heavy conduit and trying to thread pipe, without hitting a wall or structure or anything, versus gluing some PVC together and shoving it in a hole. But we've definitely been bit by undergrounds on a couple of occasions.
I guess electrical's I don't want to say it's easier, but I guess it's a little bit easier on the underground because you don't really worry about sloping or anything either. So you're doing plumbing.
Not worried about slope. Right? PVC is a little more forgiving. Kyle, you feel free to chip in, man, because you know what, I can't run conduit, so I'm just at this point just kind of talking. But
Kyle can't either. That's why he's on the other
anyway. There you go. I can talk about it. I can't do it.
Just have to. Are you able to read that by chance here?
What does it say?
I can read a little bit. Matt stinks. Yeah. Is that what they
Sorry.
yelled at Starbucks when you picked that up?
This is actually the bed bug in coffee, and by that what I mean is it's actually instant coffee.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I guess another topic that John brought up is kind of the everybody's a winner game. As long as everybody's winning, it's good. But when the ship's going down, if you can come out ahead, that's the hard part. We've had that. We've had all sides of that as well. And to be honest, I would say 75% of our work is directly for the owners and the manufacturing facilities themselves. 25% of the work, probably closer to 35% financially, is for general contractors. We do find our generals that we align with well. They're usually of the smaller size to fit that fit our complement, or that are already working in the facilities that we're in. So there's good communication there, and that's the size project we deal with. Where we tend to get in trouble is when we go for the larger job, or on the larger job sites where you have, building of the Michelin facility here in Anderson could be an example of that. Where we're a very small cog in the big wheel, and you've got some of those general issues that come with the general contractor, your stereotypical ones.
I gotcha. Back on that general contractor advice, a couple things that it's a necessary evil, I feel like, on every project is like submittals and RFIs. They're painful. Everyone hates them. Is there anything from your perspective that a general contractor can do better? Because usually 9 times out of 10, I feel like the RFIs come from the trade contractors, right? They see the problem. They have a coordination issue.
Yep.
Is there anything you see the general contractor can do to kind of help the RFI process or the submittal process?
There absolutely is. The best situations we've been in is when they have someone dedicated to. So I was on Clemson campus doing an interview with a co-op, and there's a nice young lady, and she told me that her job, the previous co-op she did, was to take the submittals for the lighting and the lighting controller and the rooms that they're in, and the architectural drawings, and make sure they actually work together. And I almost fell out of my chair. I'm like, wow, that really exists, because we had just done a big hospital job with all these very strange architectural lights that is an absolute nightmare. And it was like, wow, where were you at when I needed you? Like that would be my advice. You have these submittals beforehand. I'm talking about not RFIs, but initial submittals of here's what we're providing, or here's what you're telling us to provide, and here's our part numbers and everything. Instead of you just checking off, please pay someone to look at it and make sure it's what you want, or that it matches what it's supposed to match, fits in the hole that you're providing, meets the requirements that you're providing. Because yes, that's something we're supposed to do, but we're dependent on. For example, we just bid a job, and then they came back after we started running conduit and said, "Oh, you didn't have the ISO drawings for the way you need to support this conduit." And then you look at them, it's like, oh, we're talking about steel work now, for hundreds of feet of conduit that we weren't in the know. So there is aspects there that I would highly suggest.
I'd say most
also
contractors usually point to you and point to your contract. Says, well, your contract says you're supposed to coordinate your work with other trades and with the facility.
Those contracts say a lot of stuff we're supposed to do, and basically are responsible for every aspect of everything. But yeah, it's worth it to have that extra staff to make sure things flow smoothly in that aspect. One example is we were doing a manufacturing facility. It was a big process job. We'll say 35 people, so extremely large for us. We're one of 4 major contractors, one other electrical, and the bid process was on a machine that was installed in a different country with different specs. Kind of did the same thing. And then, you're going so fast. The general or the integrator did not provide enough staff to stay ahead of us, but they're screaming at us to go faster. So it's like, oh, how hard do you want me to run into this wall that you haven't figured out before I get there? For example, hey, this machine's coming in tomorrow, or, in a week. Can you go ahead and start the conduit for it? Sure. And then we get the conduit there, and the machine comes in, and the conduit needs to be 2 sizes bigger because the feeder's bigger, and They knew it, but they didn't. They went off the drawings that we were submitted for bids. It wasn't the machine we're installing. So things like that. Also, you mentioned the documentation. There's got to be a simple process for approving RFIs, for giving the, whoever's over the electrical, the authority to, within reason, approve it, move on, let's keep moving kind of deal. That's what we had during the Borg Warner job, and it was phenomenal. I realized that was a little bit of an extreme because if you needed 300 feet of wire, you order 500 to get it there in time and pull it in and then use the other 200 feet later. But you've got to give the people that are there the authority instead of having to go through 5 layers to get there, and let us continue moving.
What are some of the biggest bottlenecks you see typically? Is it that, or is it something else?
As far as working for a general,
just bottlenecks
I would
into the construction process in general, whether it be administrative side, field side, coordination side,
We used to get 4 weeks to bid a project. Now we'll get like 3 days. Apparently everyone's addicted to Amazon and expect 2-day delivery on everything. But that's one aspect that's a struggle. And then, they talk about it. They give you a PO and want you to start with 20 people the next day. Not something that's pretty hard to swing. But no, I would say that is kind of along the lines of the bottleneck is getting approval on information when there's changes. And on smaller jobs, it's hard because you have someone that's managing it but may not be electrical savvy. And that's where you need to have good subs. All right, tell me what to do, and then listen to them and make an informed decision. That's why we are the preferred contractor at the manufacturing facilities that we work in, because no matter how good of a manager is over us, we make them look good. We tell them what to do. If they do what we say, that's why I'm in my role, because I have some very, very good superintendents and project managers, and my job is to do what they tell me to do. Hey, what do I have to do? I need this. All right, I'll get it to you. It's that simple. Like, get someone you trust, stick with them, and have the authority to approve things to move it along.
Seems like most time the bottleneck is the inability to make a decision, is what I see a lot.
It is, or yeah, I guess I would say that. I was trying to think. I mean, there's been those extreme situations that we've had where we're, working for a general, and hey, when we were doing undergrounds. Hey, when you can go do the undergrounds in this building over here? We can do them now, but you've got like 5 other disciplines that are in there, right? Nope, they're all done. You can go in. We go in, and next thing you know, they're digging up our conduits because there's someone that has to go 27 feet deep underneath us for a drain line or something. Oh, that was your responsibility. It's in your contract that you were supposed to check all the drawings, even the ones you don't have. Okay. Thanks for the help there.
Yeah.
And those jobs end up usually costing us double what we bid for them. That one especially did.
Painful.
And I'm not trying to bash. I feel like when I have these conversations, and I've been at Clemson doing guest lectures, that I feel like I'm bashing generals. I'm not. And a lot of it's our fault that we're not good at working for generals. As far as when you work for ownership, you say yes to everything, and you do it, and they take care of you. And there's wins and losses.
Yeah.
With a general, especially ones that are kind of, those issues that you have when you say yes, you can't say yes to everything. You have to stand your ground at times. John was talking about where you get delayed a week starting, and then at the end of it, you're getting fussed at for being a week late. Well, what do you expect? We were late starting,
Right.
What are you going to say, Kyle?
I was just going to ask, so, a minute ago you were talking about how, some of the stuff that you do well as a subcontractor. So I was kind of thinking about that in terms of, like with John, we talked about, all right, what can the general do better for the subs? How about the other way around for this conversation with you? What do you guys do that works really well working with general contractors that other subcontractors should maybe start doing as well?
Man, we're super easy as far as accommodating. It's our flaw with generals, but it's also why we're good. Hey, why don't you guys do this on Saturday? Okay. And we take it on the chin and go kind of thing. Or Can you rearrange this, or can you? And it's good and bad. It's very, very good if everyone's doing that and on the same game plan and willing to make sacrifices for the good of the whole group. But it's bad if you're the only one doing it. But yeah, that's where we're good. Is we're gonna do everything to make the general look good, even if it's to our own demise. We say yes and we move forward, and we try to help them with solutions, even if it's not in our wheelhouse, or try to accommodate them with what's going on. It works really well in the manufacturing side of things, working directly for the owners. Like I said, it could work really well for the general. It depends on which general you're dealing with or which field staff from that general you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's 100% the field staff, because I've seen really good general contractors perform poorly because their project team is the D team, right? And I've seen poor, like maybe D general contractors have a good project because they got their A team on it, right? So it's kind of funny how you get.
It's almost like every general on there has to be willing to do that, or everyone has to kind of look out for number one. Yeah, it's funny. We went on a vacation a couple of weeks ago to an all-inclusive, and it's like, all right, you have to wake up at 6 a.m. to reserve your chair by the pool if you want to get a chair, otherwise you don't get it. And then you go out there and all the chairs are reserved and no one sits in them all day. It's like, if no one reserved chairs, there would be plenty of chairs whenever you wanted. But because everyone goes out there and takes care of number one, it kind of screws everybody. Don't know if that links exactly, but it's kind of,
no,
what we
does.
do good, but it backfires when everyone's not on the same page.
Yeah, you can get walked over, but I think people see that though. I think, especially owners. I'm on the owner's rep side. When we've had subs work straight for us on the owner side, and like, man, those ones that are like making my life easier, those are the ones I'm going to call back for the next one too. So,
yep, we're good.
Well, and just really quick into that point before we leave it, a lot of times that's how the subs end up getting owner work directly too. They do a great job on a project, make it really easy for everybody. They get good feedback, and then the owner's like, you know what, we're gonna cut the markup out of this. We're gonna get a higher margin, higher return on this subcontractor. Start investing in them too. So let's call them directly next time. I see that happen a lot.
Yep. Yeah, we're very fortunate to be a product of that.
That's so awesome.
Yep.
It's got to be intentional too. You got to have an intentional culture to make that happen. That doesn't happen by mistake. Well, let's talk about a fun topic: cash flow. Subcontractors always are at the bottom of the pile. Well, I guess sometimes the material vendors and stuff, but usually paid when paid, it trickles down. And so, what are some things that you've seen?
Does it?
Oh, it does, and it can really drag out. I've seen it. What are some things that contractors can do to help you guys get paid faster?
That's a tough one. And you guys talked about this in the previous podcast about just making sure you stay on top of it. In our weekly meetings, we cover our costs, and it's a huge indicator for how jobs are going. It's not what we're focused on as far as in the job, but it is a big indicator. If you've got $10,000 in material in a job and you're halfway done and you've already spent 12, you got to jump on that. So I would mirror what John said previously, that stay on top of your paperwork. There's that initial, of course, that initial cash that you get at the beginning of a project to get it started, but it is not a bad idea to go ahead and to submit an invoice the first chance you get, even if it's for a little bit of money, to get that flow going and to fill out the process. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of plants that have us on 120-day terms.
Jeez.
I mean, if you think about that, we can't invoice till 30 days. Then you have 120 days before you process it, and then 30 days until we get paid. So now we're at 180 days before we get paid, that we've leveraged out our resources, and payroll and material. And we don't do that to our suppliers. We pay our suppliers every 15 days. So as far as cash flow and getting things flowing, I think you're going to see more and more, especially with the delivery cost of things, asking for money up front. We've gone to that in a lot of cases. asking for money up front. Full, if you're going to order a $400,000 switchgear, we're going to ask for all of that, at least half of that up front, and then all of it when the order's placed. There's a lot of penalties now with changing your mind about that. And in the high dollar values, I was, generals are going to have to start working with contractors on that, materials stored off site, materials stored on site, that kind of thing, and getting that money flowing, within reason, of course. But yeah, stay on top of your paperwork, and definitely stay on top of your change orders. Change orders, usually they don't pay till the end of a project. So those I've known in situation nearby here where we had a bad experience, but there's some very good contractors that got leveraged out on change orders, and then the general decided to sit on them for a while, and they couldn't make payroll. Large companies, they had $2 to $3 million worth of change orders. I would also highly suggest to the subs that when the times are good, put the money in the bank, and do not leverage yourself out with your line of credits, especially when you're going 120-day terms. You need to keep money in the bank and have that solidity for you and your staff to ensure that things are going to continue to move. I can't tell you how many times we had a company over here where we put a forklift on an elevator, and the forks were hanging off the edge, and as the freight elevator went up, it caught the forks and did some damage to the elevator, and we got burned for $80,000 on that. Had to have cash in pocket. I know that's not a large sum of money for what you're doing, but you're having to pay that out of pocket to go to a facility so you can continue work there. Little things like that usually don't hit when you want them to.
Yeah.
So times are good. Put the money in the bank and be stable. Hopefully that answered your question somewhat.
No, it did.
But with the way of lean and paid when paid and the terms that they're going for, it's leveraging that more and more. So you need more cash in the bank to be stable and ensure that you're not going to put you and your company at risk.
I think sometimes, some state legislatures trying to help out the process. I know, like I think it was Washington State. I forget what it was, but like you can't hold retention on subcontractors or something like that. I guess if they're bonded for public work. So some stuff may be trying to help, but it's such a tough job.
The current law in South Carolina is that you're supposed to pay. I believe this is correct, so if I'm wrong, forgive me. But we just had to file a lien on a company that hadn't paid us in a year. But you look it up, and I believe they have 30 days to pay us. It's state law, and then here you are, companies asking for 120-day terms. So,
is it maybe 30 days for publicly funded projects? That's what I typically see. I mean, private work, they can do whatever the heck want to, right? That's a private
is that
contract.
true?
That's okay. My understanding.
That might be it. No, trust me, you probably know more about that than me.
I could be putting my foot in my mouth too, but that's kind of what I see. Is I don't do a lot of private work, but it's my I think, I don't know, Kyle, but you do private work with your owners and stuff. But it seems like usually private work's like it's a private contract between two willing companies, and you guys just whatever makes sense to y'all, you go do it. So if you agree to 365-day terms, then you agree to 365-day terms. Like
out of all the podcasts and all the feedback you get, someone's going to chime in on that one subject and harp on it, right?
I hope they do. I want to learn
up about some. Yeah.
If I'm wrong, I want to know.
I'm with being wrong and learning from my mistakes.
So if we're wrong, please tell us.
I'm not the financial guy at Hill Electric, so.
Well, and I I'll speak to what you guys are saying too. I mean, at least from what I see, you guys are definitely right. And I work with some large manufacturers, and they're all kind of going towards those extended payment terms, 90, 120 days out, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, the reality of the situation is it's one of those that if you want the work, you just kind of got to suck it up and do it. Otherwise, you need to work with somebody else. That's kind of the attitude. Otherwise, I try to incentivize them to pay me earlier. Like I might give them a discount or something if they can improve payment terms or something to that effect. But then also too, just thinking about the reality and practicality of it. It's me and my 4-person company versus a manufacturer that has a whole floor of attorneys. I pretty much kind of at the mercy here. They could probably put me out of business, just holding me up in court if they wanted to over things. So hopefully that never happens, because so far I've been lucky. I've worked for some really good ones. So, but it is the reality.
Unfortunately, there's ones out there that'll play that game though. They'll just keep you going in circles, right, until you finally give up.
Yeah.
So Dave, you talk about you're kind of in charge of those training programs, right? Or you
Yes, sir.
help lead them. I'm interested in kind of understanding how your programs work. I guess y'all have one for your superintendent, your field staff, and a kind of different program for your PM staff, or how do y'all got things going?
So, of course, we're being a medium-sized, a small electrical contractor. There's not an enormous amount of procedures that we have in place. So I'll do the onboarding training, the basic safety training. So it'd be similar to like OSHA 10 topics, general construction. I do like to, of course, roll in specifics for the job sites that we're at that we see in typical situations that we see, typical situations we've had issues with. From there, we do a lot of foreman training. We do quarterly meetings with the foreman where we'll do 6 or 7 hours of training on specific topics. There's the usual ones you have to cover every year of competent person fall protection, and competent person arc flash and shock. And then we'll cover electrical code and general management tools for them in those meetings. We also like to try to do something fun at the end of the meetings, like go out and do sporting clays or that aspect and kind of build that community. But we don't really have individual training programs. So I'll do safety and safety topics. A lot of that goes off of what we've seen in the field recently. We'll do company-wide once a month and address those and best practices. We'll do the foreman and performance and above training, and then anybody that's up and coming towards a foreman role or leadership role will include in the training for code and technical training, safety, additional safety requirements that a leader would need. For example, a competent person is someone that can determine what fall protection equipment to use versus someone that is qualified to use the fall protection. So we'll have them in that class. And then we also do have some supplementary classes. Usually after about 3 months, we'll have our employees go through we call it Coop University because the guy that runs it is Vance Cooper. But so they've been in 3 months. We know they're going to work. We know they're going to show up on time and that they're intelligent enough to do what we do and follow the safety rules. So then we invest in them for 2 to 3 days of running conduit, basics of electrical material and how it's used and what it's used for, and take them through that process and give them some time to, all right, you say you can run conduit, but you've got someone that's very knowledgeable standing behind you while you do it. So we're going to teach you some best practices and then let you go out in a controlled environment and flounder a little bit and kind of learn from your own mistakes kind of thing and bump them. So we give them that opportunity. And then I do a class on controls. So we do a lot of machinery installation where you're landing a bunch of devices in a control cabinet, and building the control cabinets themselves. So someone that's been here 2 to 3 years that shows promise will go through the controls course where I teach them how to read the complicated side of the electrical drawings and get the wire to the correct place, and start to build those circuits. And then the next course would be on, okay, now you can get the wire to the right place, but let's start recognizing aspects of this drawing so that you know when something's wrong. Like, all right, there's a red wire here and it's DC voltage, it should be a blue kind of thing. Or, hey, you've got a 24 volt solenoid and you're taking it 480, that aspect of things. So we don't by any means have the training perfect. I think we do more than any of the contractors our size that I've dealt with or talked to or that we have relationships with, and try to move it along. But yeah, a lot of our training is having the right field staff in place that are knowledgeable to work with those that are up and coming and invest in them.
That's awesome. Having that, just being intentional about putting your up and comers with the right people on the job site though, and kind of having that structure and kind of, I guess, a mentorship program sort of. That alone.
Correct. Yes.
That's
Yeah, we get a
awesome.
lot of staff that comes in that needs mentoring for sure.
We all do.
Personal and professional.
So really quick, David, on that, are you seeing much for trends in the industry as far as the trade shortage? I've been dying to ask you this, since you're obviously really close to the sub world and hiring people and bringing in workers in the industry. Are you seeing a lot of difficulty, and are you seeing an effect from the shortage or not?
So I'm sure you've heard for the past 6 years, everyone say the same thing of I can't find good help and where to find them. I'll give Angela a lot of credit with the way that she's exposing us in the digital world and marketing. And we've been doing a lot of guest lectures at Clemson and all the technical colleges nearby and the high school career tech centers, an extreme amount. I feel like the last 2 months of the high school schedule, I'm doing some sort of talk or expo or career day every day of the week. And it's finally seemed to gain traction, and also it seems like there's more people coming to work again, because I've hired 12 people in the last 2 months, which would be a record for Hill Electric. I feel like I've gotten some quality employees, and I currently have a stack on my desk of applications that I haven't been able to go through yet that have been there for 2 weeks. So I don't know. I can't tell you what's changed. I'd say half of those came from the field staff recommending people that they know, and half of them were from being in the schools and the guest lecture series. But there seems to be people showing up to work all of a sudden.
For people who kind of don't know Angela and what she's doing, can you give a little? You talk about like getting exposure in the digital world, like
and I'm probably going to say something stupid, and Angela will correct me later. But so Angela is director of our marketing and business development. So she is our complete digital footprint, right? That's doing the podcast and going to do the guest lectures and exposing us on all of the digital platforms. On top of that, she is putting us in for awards and different things that we can do to expose us even more, and is doing an absolute phenomenal job. She has contacted all of the high schools that I've been through and worked through that and been part of helping me to be successful in those realms. If you go around even the large electrical contractors and look at their websites, they have been updated in 15 years. 15 years ago, I had a flip phone. We're in the era of educated consumers. I'm not going to go to Target and walk around looking for something. I'm going to know what I'm going to buy because I did my research, and I walk in and I buy it, or I just order and it shows up. Well, that's the same way with contractors now. I can't go to a door and knock on someone's facility and get work because they're not going to answer, and there's no one there to answer, and you can call them and get spun around, and that's not how people do business anymore. So there's a ton of electrical, and it seems like some of our peer competitors that we have good relationships with have started to follow our trend a little bit. Angela is happy but mad about that, of course. They've seen that we've had some success going into the career tech centers, and you see them kind of moving in, which there again, it's nice to have that by yourself, but I'm sure they're going to catch on sooner or later.
Well, it helps the industry though, right? Because you guys can't hire everybody at the career tech center, so everybody starts getting involved and starts growing the next generation though. But I guess it was nice to have a monopoly.
I really enjoy teaching. I really enjoy being there in the schools from a personal standpoint. You got all of these young kids that are eager to learn, and I'm telling you, I don't know. Once again, I don't know the specifics of how Anderson is doing it, but compared to the other counties I've been to, Anderson is doing a phenomenal job of investing in exactly what this area needs, which is technical, skilled labor and skilled trades. And they're basically making it where you can attend high school and go to the career tech center and get credits at the technical college. Basically where you can shave off semesters or years off of getting a 2-year tech degree So that saves them money and time and gets more people, educated people out in the workforce. So Hill Electric, traditionally, we started with textiles, and you had the people that came out of high school and went to further education to go into the textile technical roles, like a maintenance tech. And then you had people that were not wanting to go to that education, but still had good skill and mechanical ability. And that was where we would live. We're all competing for the same people now. We're all competing for anyone that's intelligent enough to turn a screwdriver the right direction. And, I'm competing financially with people that are running manufacturing machines. And it used to be a difference, and now it's not. Now, like you said, everyone's competing for the same people, and it's tough. Like I said, it's very surprising the number of applications I have on my desk right now. But Angela's done a phenomenal job of getting us out there and getting us known and getting those relationships.
As I've seen a few people that have really doubled down on that content creation, and especially on the internet and social media, all those sort of things. And so I've mentioned them probably in every other podcast since we started this thing. But Chris Gutke's with Island Elevator, which we got to get him on sooner than later. But
because everyone hates elevator guys.
Everybody hates elevator guys more than the electrician. So you'll have to fight it out for the most hated. But no, so he creates a lot of like kind of funny videos, and he's kind of a funny guy on LinkedIn and those sort of things, right? And he first started doing this and started making all these videos, and he's got like a lot of really good kind of instructional videos and stuff, and like kind of talking to his client about elevator service contracts and what to look for and don't look for and all these sort of things. And he kind of started making these silly videos and really making this content as a sales tactic, right? He's trying to go get contracts, trying to get service contracts. He's trying to like get his name out there for the customers, because what he found was like doing that, the employee side was like following him and said, man, I want to work for this guy. I like this culture. I like their attitude. And so he was getting all these people come to knock on his door. Like, hey, you're hiring? Like, I want to come work for you guys because of what he was doing. So he's like, I've never had like a problem hiring people because like people are coming knocking on our door. And he didn't think that was going to be the case when he started, right? He was using it as a sales technique and less of like a recruiting technique. So it's kind of cool to see.
And I can kind of see that too. It's funny when, I'm doing your career days at the high schools, and the kids come over and talk to me. They don't want to hear anything about Hill Electric, but they like our hats. And so I'll say, well, you can have it if you can beat me and be the first to, if you can beat me in burpees. If you can first to 10 burpees, if you can beat me, you get the hat. And they love it, that kind of thing. And next thing you know, I've got 3 of their buddies that were standing around them calling me. But I didn't say anything about working for an electrical contractor whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was more that they saw a little bit of personality and that we like to have some fun, and that their friend got beat by an old man. So they enjoy it. So I could see that working really well. Yeah, Angela, we got to get Angela to let me do some videos. We'll see where that can go.
I'll give Angela a call. We gotta let you.
Maybe I'll do some without her at first, and then see what happens if she approves after the fact.
Angela, you need to turn David loose.
She's probably watching right now, isn't she? She's at the beach.
She'll be watching the replay. I guarantee it. But. Well, guys, we're inching up here on an hour. Kyle, you got anything else to bring up, add?
No. I think it was some great conversation. It was really fun to hear the sub side of things, and I feel there's a lot of good nuggets in this one too, Matt. I think there was a lot of conversation that I didn't see it going that way, but glad it did. So it's a great time.
I do have to say, Kyle, every time I look at you on the screen, I can't see your neck because of your beard and your shirt, your black shirt, and I think you're like getting your hair cut with one of those that they put around the front. I don't know why, but when you first came on, I'm like, is he getting his hair cut?
Don't judge. Don't knock it till you've tried it,
I'm just letting you know, man. That's what it looks like. I can't see your arms and I can't see your neck, so it looks like you got a drape on.
He's usually sitting in the coffee shop, so I wouldn't put it past him to sit in the barber shop.
That's what that noise was last time. Yep, you could hear it in the background.
Hey, next time, Matt, I will do it.
I don't doubt you. It's like take your headset off for a second, or you're just gonna cut around.
Starbucks plays incredibly loud music.
They do.
Yes.
We had one episode where Kyle was in a rave at Starbucks or something like that. It was bumping. So, well, David, appreciate it, man. You got anything else to add?
I don't. I appreciate the time. I hope it was worthwhile to anyone listening, and please feel free to shoot me any questions or if anything else you guys want to talk about later. I'm fair game, man.
Appreciate it, man. How can people get in touch with you if they have any questions or want to reach out?
So if you go to hillelectric.net, you can get in touch with me that way, or you can shoot me an email at david@hillelectric.net. We'll keep it simple. There's only one David. Can't hire anyone named David or else it'll be David too on the emails.
David.
Yeah, it's complicated then.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate it, David.
Yes, sir.
Thanks a lot.
No problem, Kyle. See you guys.